Let's see, my music just stopped. There we go. Welcome to Faith Vocals. My name is Faith. I run this stream usually every Saturday. Oh, there's my dog in the background there. Hello, boy. Wants to know what I'm chatting about. Usually he's lying over by my couch behind me. And let me move that so you can see him. Usually he's lying on the couch and is pretty mellow, but I took him to the vet recently, and the vet told me to give him some medication for his arthritis. He's an old boy. Looks really cute, but getting up there. I guess the medication's helping him feel better. Now he's a little bit more active. So that was actually an announcement that I wanted to make today, because usually I start the stream Saturdays at 7 in the morning, but given the dog's medication schedule, I'm going to have to change my stream schedule so I can make sure I give him his pills at the right time. So the next stream I do, I'm making that announcement right here at the beginning, the next stream I do I'm planning to be for Friday evening Eastern Time in the US at about 8 p.m. So Friday in the evening at 8, and then running it for a couple hours as I usually do. And we're going to be changing the schedule from now on. Just with changes in his life, we got some changes in my life, and need to get that updated. But if you are not familiar with this stream, then hopefully you haven't already left because you don't want to hear about my dog's medical issues. But usually what I do is talk about things that are important to me. Usually things... I'm a Christian, so my religion is very important to me. I talk about religion a lot on this channel. I talk about, I would call it philosophy, philosophical things. How do we know that the beliefs we have are true? And I recognize that as a finite human being, odds are really, really, really good that there are things that I believe that are not true. And so I try to have that humility as I'm talking on this channel about what I believe. And so let's see. He's usually when he looks at me like this, it's because he needs to go out, and I did try to put him out before the stream, but he wasn't interested. So let me take a moment, make sure that he's all taken care of, and then I'll come back and I'll restart the stream. So I do need someday to come up with an image, a be right back image, but for now you get chair stream. So just a moment. time he's ever interrupted the beginning of a stream. Usually he needs more attention towards the end of the stream, so I'm hoping that's a sign that he's feeling better, has a little bit more energy as a result of the medication regimen that we've been giving him. But if you're still around and you're wondering what in the world this stream is other than camera staring at an empty chair, then like I say, I like to talk about things that are important to me, and one of those things that I think is especially important is the knowledge of the search for the truth. So how do we know that what we believe is actually true? And I think that's a question that society is asking, especially these days. I think the pandemic especially brings it front and center. You've got people with varying opinions about where to get the truth about how they should live their lives, both related to the pandemic and in other areas. But the pandemic kind of brings it more into the physical world, the consequences of our beliefs, whether they be true or untrue. And we see the tensions that arise when people disagree about what's true, and both sides are fully committed to their beliefs. You don't tend to hold a belief that you believe to be untrue. So how do we deal with this? How do we make sure that the beliefs that we're holding are actually true beliefs? What do we do if it's just impossible to make sure that all of our beliefs are true? Because one of my beliefs is that we could not possibly know the truth unless there were an omniscient God who was honestly conveying truth to us, both in the instincts that we're born with as children, as infants, and also through his word, through the Bible, also through the senses that he has granted us to experience the world with. If we could not rely on the knowledge that we receive in various ways from God, how would we rely on any knowledge at all? What would our source of knowledge be? So I think it takes an omniscient and honest, a truth-telling God to ensure that what we know is actually certain, that there are true facts that our minds can actually grasp and comprehend. There's got to be some pool of knowledge that we can draw from that is all-encompassing. Otherwise, some fact that we're unaware of could easily derail any one of our beliefs. But also as a Christian, I believe that humanity is not only finite, we're fallen. So not only is our knowledge limited, but we also have this tendency to rebel against God, which means we have a tendency to resist the truth, to choose our own way over what is true. And so as a result of that, I do believe that everybody on earth is going to have something that they believe that is not true. And I saw an interesting video on YouTube the other day. A fellow named Andrew Kirby. I don't believe we have the same worldview at all, but he does videos on productivity, and I've been interested in some of his videos in the past, and so YouTube knows they can occasionally throw me one of his videos nowadays when he comes out with one. And he made a point that a lot of the beliefs that we hold that may actually be false are the same beliefs that our society holds. Why is it that we're not identifying these beliefs as falsehoods? Why is it that as we live our lives, we're not identifying that this belief doesn't work in the real world? And it could be that it's a societal belief. It's a belief that all of society holds even though it's false. And so society has shaped itself in such a way as to make that belief look true. So I don't know how well I can express that. It's kind of an abstract concept. But I thought that was interesting that as we look at the society that we're surrounded by, the people that we know and trust and who raise us and who give us our foundation for how we should view the world, what happens if those people who are just as finite as us, just as fallen as us, What if they've got it wrong? And we're all holding a false belief together. So definitely we need a source of knowledge that is going to have a full encompassing view of all facts, and be able to know what facts are true and what facts are actually fiction. Let's see. Sometimes I get on these tangents, and then I'm trying to sort through whether the idea I was trying to convey actually got conveyed, or whether I spun off in some different direction. That's what I basically talk about on the channel, either my religious beliefs, or how do we understand belief in general. And what I really want, what I'd really like, is to learn more about your beliefs, and to find out what it is that you believe, why you choose to believe the things you do. I do believe that belief very often is a choice, and that choice can be based on how important we feel one piece of evidence is versus another. Sometimes often we're looking at the same evidence. We may agree that all the facts in front of us are true, but which one should we be paying more attention to? And that can influence the beliefs that we hold. We may be looking at the same evidence, but still disagree with one another. Let's see, I had mentioned the coronavirus and how that brings to light the issue, the consequences of having false belief. And given that just about every human being is pretty much guaranteed to have a false belief, try as hard as we might, it appears to me that at least in all probability, we're not going to be able to surmount our fallen and finite state. We're going to have some belief that we just did not know enough to set it aside, or perhaps we had our own selfish reasons for holding on to that belief anyway. Didn't have the objectivity maybe to tell that those were selfish reasons. So given that we're nearly guaranteed to hold a false belief somewhere, at least one, then what do we do when we're face to face with someone that we disagree with? Do we insist that they come over to our way of understanding things, or do we try to be open-minded and understand their way of understanding things? But then again, what if belief we're talking about is their false belief? So I think this is a struggle that society is, especially now, trying to sort through. We see a lot of people who are insisting on not listening at all, and insisting that all of their beliefs are true. And then there are some voices, I think, that say we need to have a conversation where we're interested in what the other people believe, and maybe not that we plan to change our minds, maybe not that we're trying to change their minds, maybe that we're just listening, that we just have our ears open. So that's what I would like this channel to become, is I would like to be able to have a conversation with you where I can find out where you are. And on this channel I offer where I am, where I come from philosophically, and especially religiously, since that's the underpinnings, the basis for my philosophy. And as we compare and contrast our beliefs, what do we do with that gap in between? What I would like to know is where we might differ, where we might believe the same things, because we both share the same world, we both function in the same world. We necessarily have to believe something in common, and the closer that point that we believe in common is to points that we disagree with, that would be interesting to see what the difference is between where we agree and where we disagree. Because that's probably where we're going to find beliefs that we may or may not be holding in truth. So what I've been doing lately is I've been going through the Bible, giving you a context for where I am, what my beliefs are. I'm definitely interested in having a conversation with you about what you believe. I'm thinking that what I've been doing in recent weeks is the first section of the stream, I start by going through the Bible. I think this would be a great time if you have questions on like a philosophical, religious kind of questions, kind of in keeping with the topic that I'm going through with the Bible. If you have questions about Christianity, I would definitely be happy to take those and to try to answer them as well as I can. I don't claim to be an expert either on religion or on philosophy. I'm just someone with interests, because I think part of the human condition is trying to get around this truth problem. So if you have questions or comments on religion, on Christianity, on your beliefs, then they're definitely welcome here. I'm going to probably tend to disregard lighter questions like how's your day, or certainly I want to know about your day. I may ask that if I see you in chat to open conversation, but what's your favorite color? Those kinds of questions. I would reserve that kind of thing for later on in the stream, where I'm playing the computer game. Today's game is Subnautica. We've been playing that for a few weeks, and we're about ready to be rescued by the Sunbeam. So if I have played past this section in Subnautica before, I kind of have the spoilers in my head, but I'm not intending to share those with you. But Sunbeam is on its way to rescue us. We've got to get to the rendezvous point in time today. And so that would be a great place to ask the lighter questions about what kind of games you like, or to talk about our day, that kind of thing. So I am still learning how to stream. It is a very different process than making YouTube videos. A lot of the advice that I get on how to run a channel on YouTube revolves around YouTube videos. So definitely have a steep learning curve with learning how to live stream on this channel. And things are bound to change. I may have an idea for how things work, and it may not be feasible. So we'll see how it goes. Today, I want to get into Genesis chapter 6. I'm going to pull up my screen here. We're set on Genesis chapter 5. We actually finished this chapter last week, but I do kind of want to take a step back and hit a few points here. They may be relevant in Genesis chapter 6. I'm not sure if they'll be relevant today, but just in case we get farther than I think, then I want to go ahead and hit those points here. But this is, I'll tell you what, let me take let me give you some more context. The whole point of this section where I'm looking at the Bible is to give you context for my beliefs. So I think the best way to start a book or a story or an explanation is to start at the point where you need the least context. So as I'm looking at my beliefs, let's go all the way to the beginning. Let's go all the way to Genesis, which starts in Genesis 1:1 with the words "in the beginning." So this is the place to start. And let's get our context from there. So we're a few chapters into Genesis, so now I have to start going back a little bit to fill in some of the context that we may have passed already. If you've seen past streams, you may pick up on some of this. If you have not, then I want to try to bring you to the point that we're at now. So the interesting part of Genesis, the big context part of Genesis for what I believe as a Christian, starts in Genesis chapter 6 verse 9, the story of Noah. And probably if you know anything about Judeo-Christian religion, you know that Noah was the man who survived the great global flood. Of course, there is debate among Christians about whether it was a global flood. I do believe it was a flood that covered the whole earth, covered the mountains, just like the Bible says. We'll get into that when we get into Noah's story. We'll see if we get into Noah's story today. There may be some setup to give us an idea of the circumstances that Noah was living in. So we may be focusing on that setup of the story today. But in case we get into Noah's story, I just wanted to bring this out. So when Noah's story starts, it starts with these are the generations of Noah. And I see these as kind of like chapter divisions in the book of Genesis, or as parts in the book of Genesis. Sometimes when you read a really long novel, it'll be divided into part 1 and part 2 and part 3. And in the Bible, we have these divisions, these chapters and verses. We're in chapter 6 and we're in verse 1, verse 2, verse 3. But these were not originally the way that the Bible was constructed. God did not tell whatever human he was asking to write the Bible, this is verse 1, and now this is verse 2, and now this is verse 3. That's not how the Bible was originally inspired to the authors that received it. When they wrote, they were writing as we do, which is a big wall of text, and depending on the language, they may not have even had punctuation to separate the thoughts that they were writing. They would have ways of expressing themselves maybe that would give an idea of when a thought starts and ends. And one of those ways of expressing themselves is this line, "These are the generations of." So I want to go back to Genesis chapter 2. This is where we first see the line in Genesis. We've had a summary of how the world was created. And then in Genesis chapter 2, these are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created. So now we go into a little more detail about the creation. I believe this is kind of the creation story in more detail from Adam's point of view. It kind of focuses on when God created mankind. And interestingly, in this section, it tells us that, no small plant of the field had yet sprung up, for the Lord God had not caused it to rain in the land. The next verse says a mist was going up from the land, and that was watering the whole face of the ground. So at least when God first created the world, we see that there was a mist that was watering the vegetation on the world. Genesis chapter 2 says there was no rain. So we don't hear any change in that condition until Genesis chapter 6, where we have the great flood. I presume that means that there had been no rain up until the time of Noah, that the land was still watered by this mist that was feeding the plants. I did some research on deserts once upon a time. I thought I was going to write a story about deserts, and it's interesting how deserts are able to maintain vegetation, especially when it's a desert right on the coast, because moisture will come up in huge mists off of the ocean and come over the desert, and so that provides some water to plant life, even though it's a place that doesn't get any rain. I know at least in South America, I'm sure there are places like this all around the world, but they'll get this mist where we usually think of something visible. We usually think of fog, where you can see this cloud rolling in and you know that it's going to be a wet, humid environment. But in some locations, the air doesn't really show that humidity. It can be a clear, there's clear visibility as far as you can tell, because the water droplets are so small. So you'll be driving through a clear patch of air and suddenly your windshield will have water all over it out of nowhere, because it was holding all that water in the air, but the droplets were so small we couldn't see the condensation. So those were some interesting things that I've come across. So the mist definitely would be a feasible way to water the plant life of the earth, especially in the beginning when God first created the earth. Let's see, this is Genesis 3. I want to get to Genesis 5, where it tells us this is the book of the generations of Adam. So we had the book of the generations of the heavens and the earth, and now it's giving us another division. This is the book of the generations of Adam. So this is where we started. This is the genealogy of Adam. It tells us how old he lived to be, and gives us an idea of his children, especially the most prominent one, Seth. So we're following the line of Seth from Adam in this genealogy here. These genealogies often come across as pretty dry in the Bible, but you can get some useful information from them. For instance, when Adam had lived 130 years, he fathered a son in his own likeness and after his image, and named him Seth. Seth was Adam's third son in Genesis chapter 4. Then we meet Cain and Abel, who were the first two sons. But Seth is our progenitor. Everybody on Earth comes from the line of Seth, and when we get to Noah's story, we'll see why that is. So Adam had Seth. Adam had other sons and daughters, and overall Adam lived for 930 years. Adam was the first person on Earth, the first man that God created. God created Adam and Eve, Adam's wife, perfect initially, no sin, no flaws. But they chose to rebel against God. We find that in Genesis chapter 3. And ever since then, we see a decline in human nature, not only in morality, but physically. So Adam, we have, he lived 930 years. Seth, 912 years. Enosh, 905 years. So there's a trend to shorter and shorter lifespans, 895 years. Sometimes we get people who kind of buck the trend. Sometimes people are above average. So 962 years, Jared outlived even Adam. The oldest, well, Enoch was unique. God took Enoch before Enoch could pass away. So Enoch had 365 years on the earth. Enoch did not die. God actually took him as far as this passage tells us. Enoch's son Methuselah was the oldest living man recorded, 969 years. Then we get down to Lamech, who is the father of Noah. Lamech lived 770 years. And this genealogy stops when Noah was 500 years old. Now, Noah lived beyond that. But the genealogy is bringing us to the point where the next step in the story that God wants to tell begins. So in, let's see, how many generations have we got here? Adam would have been the first generation, and then Seth would be the second. Let's see, Enosh the third, Enan the fourth, Mahalalel the fifth, Jared the sixth, Enoch the seventh, Methuselah the eighth, Lamech the ninth. So Noah is the 10th generation from Adam. And why do I care about this? Because Adam was created perfect, morally perfect, physically perfect. And in 10 generations, we get to this situation here in Genesis chapter 6. When men began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. Then the Lord said, "My spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh, his days shall be 120 years. So we see God kind of setting a hard line on mankind. I tend to interpret this to be God is setting human longevity to be 120 years. This is not a hard, fast rule. The Bible tells us, well, at the end of the genealogy that we just saw, we saw that Noah was 500 years, and later on we're going to find Noah, I think, lives into his 900s, like his ancestors. So this isn't putting a stop immediately to everybody's life who's older than 120 years, but we do see mankind, the lifespan of mankind declining to where nowadays we expect to live 80 years. If we live 90 years, that's really good. It's rare to see anyone living 100 years, and maybe there's the rare individual who has been over 120, but that is kind of almost unthinkable. So, we're really celebrating if someone gets into their hundreds. So we've got this line that God is setting. The days of man will be 120 years. It says the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. I'll come back to this in a bit. But I wanted to get here. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. So mankind in 10 generations has come from being the most perfect specimen of humanity, both morally and physically, to every intention of the thoughts of mankind. So just about every thought of every man, in general, is only evil continually. There's a lot of emphatic words used here. Every intention, only, continually. So a lot of re-emphasis. No, it really was that bad is what the language here is trying to tell us. And the Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man, whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. So our setup here for this story, this account, I want to emphasize, I believe this is all true history. But a lot of the times when we're giving an account, when we're telling a story, when we've got a narrative that we're conveying, and by narrative I don't mean a political agenda, I mean the way that we express stories, commonly we take some time to give the environment of the story, the setting of the story. A lot of times if you're writing your own story, you might be tempted to write the first page opening with the weather. And why is it that we look at the weather when we're thinking about how am I going to start this story? Well, actually, weather can be pretty important. It can influence the mood of the characters in the story. It can convey something unique about the surrounding environment. Like, what region are you in? Is it snowing? Are there hurricanes? Is it a dry desert? So it's not a bad place to start. A lot of times if you do it poorly, it's a kind of boring way to start a story, but we start generally from the environment, from getting a sense of the society or the external factors that our main character is going to be contending with, and then we work in from that point. In this case, our main character actually lived in history. I believe that the Bible is a historical document, is evidence of Noah's actual existence, and there have been people who have searched for other evidence, archaeological evidence of Noah, and looking at science, searched for evidence in science of the global flood. I think it's interesting that there is, and I come from a homeschool environment. I was brought up in a biblical understanding of our origins, so sometimes I may get details about secular science off that someone who was raised in a secular school might have down pat, because they had to memorize all of the names of the eras and those kinds of things. But I'm given to understand there was a era that's taught in evolutionary philosophy, the idea that the earth is billions of years old. One of those periods in that billions of years is actually a period when the earth was under constant flooding, constant rain. And I wonder, okay, why is it that even in an evolutionary understanding of our planet, we're coming to the conclusion that there was a time when the earth was constantly submerged, basically, or at least there was constant moisture in the earth, in the atmosphere. I think scientists, let's say, going through the fossil record or the various ways that biological archaeologists study, paleontologists maybe is the appropriate word for them, study our history, they come across this patch of evidence in nature that could only be explained by a period of global, I'll say moisture to put it mildly, because I don't have enough facts to state the case concretely, but even that fact of evolutionary thinking, I think, is evidence that humanity can't deny a global flood could have happened. It's not impossible that the earth was globally flooded. In fact, there's evidence for it that the secular community has to contend with. So I definitely take this book to be history, but even as we're conveying history, it's kind of nice to have that context That's probably going to be a theme word here on the channel, context. To know where we're coming from and where our main character is going. So, in 10 generations since Adam, we have this situation where humanity is thoroughly inundated with wickedness. It says Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Later on, God says to Noah, let's see, what was the, okay, it wasn't something God said to Noah. This is a commentary that the inspired author, we believe that would be Moses, put into the Bible. It says Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God. So this line, blameless in his generation, I don't believe that means Noah never sinned. We definitely get an account later in the Bible where Noah sinned. I don't believe this means that Noah was completely sinless at this point, but given the level of wickedness in his society, Noah walked with God. You can tell Noah is at least making an effort to please God and to live in a way that honors God. But I want to come back really quick. This section before this section from Genesis 6, 1 through 4. I want to highlight this because even among Christians, we don't really know what the proper understanding of this part of history is. Not having been there personally, kind of hard to understand the language describing this section here. So again, when man began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, that seems pretty easy to understand on the face of it. We're getting, the world is being repopulated. It's kind of odd to think of daughters being born to men, but I think the idea is, yes, there were men and women ever since the time of Adam and Eve, ever since Cain and his wife and Seth and his wife. So we've got the world beginning to populate, both male and female. And it says, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. We get this verse interrupting here. The Lord says, my spirit shall not abide in man. We've got a footnote, my spirit shall not contend with man. When we're translating from the Hebrew like this, there are some phrases that just don't have a clear one-to-one relationship with English. So sometimes translation gets fuzzy, and definitely in the newer versions of the Bible, like the ESV is a fairly recent translation of the Bible. We're trying to provide as much information as possible about what this might mean. So there will be footnotes that may say, you could look at the Hebrew and say, God saying, my spirit shall not contend with man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. So that interrupts this description. And then Genesis 6:4 is the really confusing verse here. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward. So who's these Nephilim people? When the sons of God came into the daughters of man and they bore children to them. So this all seems like it's the same idea. We don't really stop to take a breath until this period, and I'm not really familiar with how ancient Hebrew would have been written. I know at least ancient Greek, they didn't have punctuation. So sometimes it's not clear where the thought ends. This seems like a logical stopping point, so I can see why a translator would put a period there. So the Nephilim were on the earth when the sons of God came into the daughters of man and they bore children to them. All seems like one related thought. For whatever reason, these thoughts are together in one package. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. So I want to stop and pause here because there are 3 different ways that Christians interpret this section of scripture. We have the daughters that were born to men, and then it talks about the sons of God who were attracted to the daughters of men and took as their wives the daughters of men. And then we have these Nephilim, a different name than the sons of God. So we've got these 3 groups of people, the sons of God, the daughters of men, and the Nephilim. So there are some Christians who say, well, the sons of God would be like the descendants of Seth, because when Adam and Eve had their kids, we see in Genesis chapter 4, they had Cain, and Cain killed his brother Abel, basically rebelled against God. Cain is definitely not a godly person, not admirable at all. But then God gave Adam and Eve Seth. And Eve says that God has appointed for me a son since Cain killed Abel. And so now we have these two sons that are highlighted in Genesis chapter 4, Cain and Seth. Cain would be the bad one. Seth would be the good one in a lot of people's understanding. So the sons of God must be the sons of Seth, and the daughters of man must be descended from Cain. And we've got this intermingling of different worldviews. The Bible talks about it's a problem when people who believe in God get into romantic or marriage relationships with people who don't believe in God, because often those who believe in God get swayed, get led to accept the beliefs of those who don't believe in God. They get led away from God. So some people say that's what this is talking about, and as a result of these relationships, then the children, some of these children from these relationships became men of renown, mighty men who are known as the Nephilim. And let's have a look at this footnote, giants. I'll get into why giants. In the future, if you look at the King James Version of the Bible, which is a very well accepted, reliable translation of the Bible, it will say the giants were on the earth in those days. Let's actually get into the Hebrew. I'm using a website called Blue Letter Bible at blueletterbible.org, or you can also go to blb.org. And I like this site. I'm always talking it up because it has tools like this. We have a Hebrew translation of the Bible, Masoretic text. I'm not familiar with the history of that, but definitely one that we look to for our translations. And this word giants is the Hebrew word Nephil. I'm not sure if I've got that Nephil, apparently. And so talking about this group, the Nephilim, comes from this root word, Nephal, which means to fall, to cause to fall. So there's this idea of fallenness in the name of the Nephil. And when you're talking about one of these folks, you would be talking about a Nephil. But when you want to do plurals in Hebrew, if you're talking, let's say I want to talk about my dog. In Hebrew, dog, the word for dog, I believe, is kelev. So my dog would be a kelev because he's male. If he was a pack of dogs or a pack of male dogs, then the plural, talking about each of those individual dogs, would be kelevim, if I'm not mistaken. But if we're talking about a pack of female dogs, just all of them are female, then this is where I get a little bit confused, but I believe that plural would be kelevdot. So there's a difference between the genders, but usually when you see this, these last two letters here, the im, then it's a plural. It's like adding s to the back of the word. In English, we pluralize our words usually by adding s at the end of them. So the Nephilim, the idea behind this word is either the fallen or those who fell, those who cause others to fall. So got some more description here. A bully or tyrant, possibly. Some other, I think I saw something about rebel somewhere in this vicinity. Fallers, rebels, apostates. So there's some, okay, why is this word being used? I think that the translators are trying to figure out what is the possibility, what is the possible reason this word is being used? Is it because these Nephilim are considered fallen men, or is it because the Nephilim are powerful and so they cause others to fall either physically or maybe they are corrupters. Maybe they're causing people to fall morally. So one of the possible beliefs that Christians might have about these people is that they're an intermingling between the sons of God, the descendants of Seth, and the daughters of Cain, who would have a different upbringing, a different philosophy. Would have been the daughters of man would have probably led the sons of God astray. That's one way to think about it. Another explanation that I've heard from people who I respect, I think these are some of these folks who believe this are good Bible teachers. That includes my dad. He's one of these. I'll get into why he holds this view, but the second view that people may take is that the sons of God don't refer to humans. The sons of God refer to angelic spiritual beings. And we see in other places in the Bible, there's this word angel that gets used. I think that's actually a Greek word, but we see these messengers that God sends out. The word angel actually means messenger. When you talk about evangelicals, Christians are evangelical Christians because we're sharing the good message. So in Greek, the Eve part, I think it could also be pronounced EU. So that's that carries the idea of good. And then angel, evangel. That angel part is the word for message. So if you're an angel, then you are a messenger, and a human could be a messenger just as much as God has his spiritual messengers who we see in different points in the Bible. So when we see a servant of God who is not human, we call them an angel because they're his messenger. So some people believe that the sons of God are actually spiritual entities. In this case, these are not God's messengers. They are fallen spirits, which the Bible says that there is a spiritual war going on. Satan would be one of these, I'm going to call them creatures, because God would have created these spiritual entities also. And Satan would be one of these creatures where God had created them to serve him, but apparently Satan rebelled against God, decided that he wanted to be God instead, or at least as great as God. And God was not on board with that. You can't be as great as God. And since Satan was rebelling against God, in justice, God deposed Satan from the place that Satan had been created to occupy, from the role that Satan had been created to serve. But it appears that Satan was able to win over a number of these spiritual entities also. And so we have the fallen angels. That's how we describe them, those who rebelled against God, who are now subject to God's wrath. And tell you what, I'm looking at my mic levels. They look a little high. I'm going to bring that down a touch. So maybe a touch more. So we have these spiritual fallen entities that are clearly described in Scripture. When Jesus was walking around on the earth, he was part of his healing ministry was in ridding people of demon possession. There were demons who had possessed people, and Jesus was telling the demons off, basically commanding the demons to leave the person that the demon had possessed. And these demons would be these spiritual entities, these fallen angels. And so some people believe that we've got fallen angels who are called sons of God because they were created beings very much like God, spiritual entities as opposed to physical beings like humanity. And the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, so there's some sort of relationship between these fallen spiritual beings that definitely would not be in keeping with whatever design God had made for humans and for angels. They took as their wives any they chose, and so the result of these unions between the supernatural and the natural were these people, the Nephilim, who were mighty men, men of renown, also translated as giants. So definitely people worth calling out this early in the book of Genesis. So that is a view that some people take. The view that I tend to take on this, and I'm gonna be very clear. This is not a perfect view. I'm gonna explain why I maybe need to reconsider my view, but the one that I have taken up to this point. When man began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive. So who are these sons of God? We know that God created Adam, and we know that God created Eve. We know that God created man out of the dust of the earth. So it seems like an actual process that God used to shape man out of the dust of the earth. It was God's involvement in the creation of humanity, of mankind. Adam, the first man, was a product of God creating him out of the earth. And then it's in Genesis chapter 2, it tells us that Eve was created from Adam's rib. So God is still involved in the process of shaping Eve from this rib, but she doesn't come straight from the earth, straight from the product of God's creation, the earth, the way Adam did. She comes from man. So it makes some sense that you might call males the sons of God, and the daughters of man you might call, women, females, you might call the daughters of man. They're both created by God, but women have a connection to man in that Eve was created from Adam's rib. So I don't take these to be special kinds of people. I take them to be people. And then God is dealing with the sin in humanity. The Nephilim, who are the Nephilim, special people, giants, and there's good reason for understanding them to be giants. It's saying when the sons of God came into the daughters of man and they bore children to them, so I'm understanding this to be normal human relationships. Some of these children were mighty men who were of old, men of renown. So there are some who are saying mankind is declining, especially as the sons of Seth are intermingling with the daughters of Cain and are drifting further away from God. That's one view. There are some who say there are these demonic chimera children who are being born, the Nephilim, and the judgment of the earth comes from this wicked union. God does not allow this progeny to continue, and so God destroys the earth kind of in relation to this. And there are passages in the New Testament, I don't remember if it's 1st or 2nd Peter, but one of those two books, people point to that and say this is talking about angels who would have been alive during the time of Genesis. And I think I think that may not be a bad text to look at. I have not had time to go deep into study in the New Testament about this, so I won't be getting into that passage. But if you're interested in more on this, 1st and 2nd Peter are not long books. Definitely go to blb.org or use your own version of the Bible and look that up and see if you can identify the passage that I'm thinking of. So there are some who say that God is not allowing this union of the supernatural and the natural to continue, and that leads to God destroying humanity in the global flood. My view would be this verse here. The sons of God, so mankind, saw that the daughters of man, also mankind, were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. So when you get into the laws that God gives Israel, when Israel starts to become a nation, you have this section where God is saying, is giving laws like don't marry your mother, don't marry your sister, don't marry your wife's sister. He's making room for the polygamy that's already in society at this point. Genesis chapter 4 describes the first recorded polygamous relationship, at least as far as the Bible records it. And so God does say, if you're going to have more than one wife, then these are regulations to make sure that you're treating both of your ladies properly. However, do not marry the sister of your wife. That would be one of the laws that they have in Israel. So there are these stipulations about which women a man might marry or have physical relations with. All physical relations in biblical Israel were supposed to be between a man and his wife. All sexual relations, to bring that to a narrower definition. And there are these regulations on who you could and could not marry. So my take is that the sons of God and the daughters of man were not abiding by any regulation on who they were marrying. These would be sinful relationships, and God is finding this to be wicked, is finding humanity to be increasingly wicked. Every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil, and so this is an indication of the decline of humanity, would be my take on this. Now, why don't I like the Cain versus Seth view? Because in Genesis chapter 5, it says Adam, the days of Adam after he fathered Seth were 800 years, and he had other sons and daughters. So we have Cain, in Genesis chapter 4. It tells us the story of Cain, and we know Cain is alive and is having his own line. Cain's genealogy is in Genesis chapter 4. This is Seth's genealogy. So we're seeing that Seth has his own line, so that's why people focus on Cain and Seth. But there are other sons and daughters who are populating the earth that the Bible doesn't talk to us about. So Cain and Seth are not the only players on the world stage at this point. So I don't think it's fair to single out Cain and Seth as the origins of these sons of God and the daughters of man. There are lots of other possibilities for humans that these groups could have come from. So that's why I don't tend to assume it's just the offspring of Cain and Seth. My view does include the offspring of Cain and Seth, but it doesn't distinguish between them. Why don't I like the view that these are supernatural marriages, supernatural unions? As I think about the character of Satan, who is in the Bible is the adversary. The word Satan means adversary in Hebrew, of God. So this is God's arch enemy. He is a spiritual being that is created by God, like one of the angels. There are descriptions in the prophets like Ezekiel and Isaiah that people associate to be descriptions of Satan before Satan rebelled against God, suggesting that he was made to serve God, and then Satan rebelled against God. So Satan was made to live aligned with God's plan, but he decided to resist God's plan. Assuming that Satan led his own spiritual forces to this level of rebellion where they're intermingling with man and with women, and I don't doubt that he could or would do this. The idea is that this was enough for God to create a flood to destroy the world. So then my question is, was that sufficient punishment for Satan? Would that cause Satan to stop ever doing this again? And my thought, this is my speculation, so I probably got a weak argument here. My thought about Satan is not easily cowed. He is resisting God whatever way he can. and only exists because God is allowing Satan's rebellion to play out. God is giving Satan rope to hang himself with. So my understanding is Satan takes this course of action. The spiritual is intermingling with the natural, and God wipes out humanity. I'm thinking Satan would be looking at that saying, I gotta rise out of God. I can do that again. So my question is, why don't we see more Nephilim today? Why are we not seeing Satan taking this course of action again today? Don't know. Like I say, I could have a bad argument. It's based on my understanding of supernatural beings, supernatural characters, and my understanding may fall way short in that department. So, but that is my argument for why I don't believe that these would be supernatural unions. Instead, I say they were sinful unions between humans. And we have this instance where God regrets. It says the Lord regretted that he made man on the earth. I don't think God was surprised. God in the Bible is described as timeless and omniscient. God knew when he created Adam that he would be destroying the world in a global flood because of the sin of mankind. I think what's expressed here is that mankind's sin had risen to the level that God was willing to tolerate. And so God stops it at this level. This is the level that is, okay, no more. We are not going any further than this. This is the limit. So the Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. I'm going to knock down the microphone volume a little bit more, so we'll see how that goes. Sometimes I lean forward, and of course that makes my voice louder, as you may have noticed. So still learning this whole streaming thing. I hope I haven't blown your ears out. Let's see. So gotten distracted by that. Where was I? So we have this level of wickedness has risen to the point that God is setting a limit. No more. We're done. I'm going to start over. Noah gets to continue because out of the entire world, we can tell Noah is pursuing God. Noah is righteous, but the rest of humanity has just become so grievous against God. God is starting over. And what do we see today? Ever since this event where God wipes out humanity except for Noah and his immediate family, we still see all sorts of sexual perversion. And one of the things that the Bible, when we get into Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, those are the books of the law of Israel. And there are stipulations there about the kind of sexual relations you can have. Later on in the New Testament, after Jesus had come, had redeemed mankind of their sin, as the Jewish followers of Jesus were coming together in these assemblies, these churches, they're dealing with a world that they're dealing with the Hebrews, the Jews of that time, were living in Roman culture, and so some of them had begun taking on Roman culture. So now the church has to figure out, how do we deal with these gentilized Jews, these Hellenized Jews, is the actual description of them in the Bible. And in addition to that, there's an account of a Gentile, not a Jew, a whole Gentile, who accepts Jesus as his Savior, receives the Holy Spirit, which is a sure mark that God has accepted this person into God's heavenly family, into the kingdom of God. So now what do we do with the Gentiles? Because the Gentiles weren't trained in Hebrew law. What laws should we make the Gentiles practice in order to be good Christians, especially since we know that the whole reason Jesus came is because we're not capable of keeping the law. Every single human being has broken God's law. How can we tell these Gentiles, you're not good enough to save yourself? So you need Jesus. Good job. You accepted Jesus. Now here's a list of rules that you have to follow. So in Acts verse 15, let me go there just to make sure I've got my details correct. But I'm sorry, Acts chapter 7, chapter 15. There we go. So this is the meeting that the church had regarding which laws they're going to pass on to the Gentile Christians. There were some people who were saying, unless you practice this ritual circumcision, you cannot be saved, because that for the Jews was an indication that they were under God's covenant. They had an agreement with God. So they're saying you have to become part of this agreement with God, and you have to go through this circumcision. But there's some disagreement about whether or not that and other laws are what the Gentiles need to practice. So what they finally landed on, what they finally decided, they sent men with the following letter. They're going out to the churches with this decision, and they say, "For it has seemed good to the Holy Spirit and to us to lay on you no greater burden than these requirements: that you abstain from what has been sacrificed to idols, and from blood, and from what has been strangled, and from sexual immorality." So out of the whole law of Israel, they come up with these, it looks like four rules. And a lot of these have to do with idolatry. Don't sacrifice to idols. You're under God now. Your commitment should be to God. Blood is a part of idolatrous rituals. When animals get strangled, from what I understand, there's a pooling that happens with the blood in the body. So this is helping people not to consume blood the way that this is describing. Also possibly a humane practice for the animals. And then, kind of different from all the rest of this is still a practice in immorality. There was ritual sex in the idolatry is what I'm saying. There was ritual sex in idolatrous religions. But in general, abstain from sexual immorality. So this seems like something that the church, which I believe was guided by the Holy Spirit, guided by God himself. God is a triune being. We understand that being to be made of God the Father, God the Son, who is Jesus, and God the Holy Spirit. So God is, they're saying God told us these are the four things, and one of these things is sexual immorality. One of these things is not like the others, in my opinion. Let's see, can I get back to, yes, Genesis 6. So that seems to be a big deal to God. And what I see, it doesn't stop here in Genesis 6. It doesn't stop with the flood of Noah. We're in the time, let's see, we're going to be, this runs from Genesis 6 through 9, the story of Noah. Runs from chapters Genesis 6 through 9. Verse 10, I think, is another genealogy. Chapter 10 is another genealogy. In chapter 11, we have the story of the Tower of Babel. That's the story of how mankind's language, which originally was one language, because we all came from one family, we all came from the line of Noah. How did our languages get split so far the way that they have? That's the explanation given in the Tower of Babel story in Genesis chapter 11. And then in Genesis chapter 12, we start in on the life of Abraham. And there are definitely sexual practices in the society of Abraham that are biblically immoral. So the Bible describes, not everything in the Bible is a prescription. A lot of it is a description of the sin of humanity. Describes a time when society, not long after the flood, is going back to the same practices that caused the flood. And even today, some of the biggest issues in Christians today is how should we handle the world's understanding of sexual practices. There are people, I'm going to say secular people, could be people of other religions too, but the society out there will look at Christians and call us immoral for not accepting the sexual practices that the world currently holds to be popular. And I'm sure you can imagine some of the ones that I'm talking about. So this seems to be something that Satan continues to be doing. It worked the last time. So it seems like something that Satan continues to be pushing, which to me seems like it's Satan's character. But I do want to point out my version of this story has a hole that you can drive a truck through. So probably I need to reconsider my understanding of this position, because we have these Nephilim. These the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men and they bore children to them. The two ideas, the union between the sons of God and the daughters of men, they're pretty close to this idea of the Nephilim. Does that mean they're connected or not? Hard to tell. These were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. Is that the children of the sons of God and the daughters of men? Is that the Nephilim? Is that the children of the sons of God and daughters of men who were the Nephilim? Hard to say. But we have these people, the Nephilim, who would have been the product of normal human relations, according to my understanding. And then I'm thinking, I'm just checking my time here. It's about 8:20 now, so usually I start playing the game. I'm going to continue so that I can look into more about who these Nephilim were. But I'm not going to get through the whole Noah story. In summary, God wants to wipe out humanity, but Noah finds favor with him. So God says to Noah, build an ark. You and a sample of all the different kinds of animals, get on the ark. You guys are going to survive. Everything else will not. So Noah obeys God. And over the next few chapters, it describes the world after the flood. Takes, I think it's like at least a year for this flood for the flood to come and go completely. And finally, Noah and his family are the only humans alive. And the animals that came on the ark, at least the birds and the land animals that came on the ark, are the only animals alive to repopulate the earth. And so that should be the end of the Nephilim. Because is Noah a Nephilim? It doesn't say he's one of the Nephilim. Noah's sons wouldn't be the Nephilim. Doesn't say anything about Noah's daughters. So that should be the end of the Nephilim. So one of the things I like about, let's go back to Genesis chapter 6. One of the things I like about this website, Blue Letter Bible, I've already gone to the Hebrew, that check mark. Doesn't really bother me, but it bothers me. There's no fault to that check mark being there. It just lets the site know which verse you want to copy. But I'm getting rid of it anyway. So we've already been to the Hebrew, but one of the features here is you can go down and see all the verses where that verse gets used. So we have this in Genesis chapter 6 where we were, but there's this other verse in the book of Numbers. And in the book of Numbers, it's Moses leading the Israelites through the desert, and they finally come up to the border of Israel. And so, well, it's not Israel yet, it's the land of the Canaanites, which God is going to give to the children of Israel. It's going to become Israel. So Moses sends spies from the children of Israel, the nation of Israel. Says, go spy out the land, see how strong the people there are, and tell us about it. So these spies come back, and we'll start here. And they told him, we came to the land which you sent us. It flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. And it talks about this one cluster of grapes that these spies from the children of Israel got from the land, and they carried it on a pole between two men. That was the size of the cluster of grapes, so kind of hard to imagine. There are artistic depictions of the spies carrying back this cluster of grapes. Sounds like it would be massive if you have to carry it on a pole between two men. So this is its fruit. However, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of Negev, the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the hill country, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea along the Jordan. And these are some of the nations that God said to Moses, I'm sending you guys to fight these nations, to kill these nations, because these nations have been wicked, excessively wicked. The outcry against these nations has risen up before me. So we'll get into more detail on that as we get deeper into the Bible. I do intend to go through the books of the law in more detail as I get there. So these are some of the nations they were to confront. But let's see, I'm trying to see the context here. So they're talking about these descendants of Anak there and their enemies. And it says, but Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it. So this one spy gives his opinion. This is good. We can do this. The Lord, we are well able to overcome it. Then the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we are. So they brought to the land of they brought to the people of Israel a bad report of the land that they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone to spy it out is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people that we saw in it are of great height. And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who come from the Nephilim. And we seem to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seem to them. So we have this group of people from the Nephilim who have survived the flood. How did these people survive the flood? All of the people were wiped out except for Noah's family. We don't hear of a Nephil coming on the ark. So where did the Nephilim come from? So it says the sons of Anak who come from the Nephilim. Let's see who these sons of Anak are. We're going to do our verse jumping again. Oh, let's see. We're looking for the word Anak. There we go. We'll see all the references for the word Anak here. These are the descendants of Anak, Ahiman, Jeshai, and Talmai. So those are the sons or descendants of Anak. Let's see. They talk of in Deuteronomy, this is later on, Moses is recapping to Israel the story of their history, because what happened as a result of seeing these giants and getting too scared to trust God to give them the land, the people of Israel said, no, let's not take the land. And God says, well, fine, I'm going to have you guys stay here in the desert then. All of the adults of the Israelites are going to die off, and the children who you're trying to protect by not going into the land to fight the giants, those children will rise up and fight the giants instead of you. Well, then Israel has a change of heart and they go off to fight the giants, but God's not blessing them because Israel is rebelling against him. And so they get defeated. And so then they live in the desert for a generation. So now this is the next generation, the generation of the children, and Moses is telling these children, this is what happened to your parents, and this is your history. So he's kind of recapping what happened with the spies. Hear, O Israel, you are to cross over the Jordan today, and to go in to dispossess nations greater and mightier than you, cities great and fortified up to heaven, a people great and tall, the sons of the Anakim. So again, it's pluralizing it, sons of Anak. The Anakim would be the Anaks or Anakites, the descendants, whom you know and of whom you have heard it said, who can stand before the sons of Anak? So not only are these Anakims tall, they're also well known to be great fighters. I want to go into a little bit more detail about the Anakim, so we're going to follow that trail. Okay, and this one is gives us some information about that. Again, Deuteronomy, so talking about recapping what happened to the nation of Israel again. And it talks about a segment of Israel's journey where they were on their way to the promised land, to the land where the Anakim lived. And it talks about the Emim formerly lived in these regions that Israel passed. A people great and many, as tall as the Anakim. Like the Anakim, they are also counted as Rephaim. So we're getting a lot of these similar sounding words thrown at us. We've got Nephilim, we've got Anakim, we've got Rephaim and Emim. So it might be getting a little bit confusing. The idea is the Anakim are descended from the Nephilim. The Nephilim were back at the time of Noah, but the Anakim apparently have carried whatever qualities the Nephilim have carried that past Noah somehow. We don't have any record of Noah or his family being Nephil, and yet the Anakim are descended from the Nephilim somehow. And we also have a people great and many and tall, the Emim, and they are called, counted as Rephaim. So these Rephaites, I guess descendants of Repha, the Anakim and the Emim are both giants and are both descended from the Rephaim. So one last jump. We're going to see who these Rephaim are. Giants, that's what I'm looking for. In fact, I should have a sense. So apparently the root word has the sense of invigorating. I don't know what that has to do with the people, why the people are called the Rephaim, whether they're descended from Repha or whether there's something about them that they are an invigorated people, something along those lines. Also in Deuteronomy, so we're getting a little bit more detail about the people of the land that Israel has walked through. They fought a king named Og, king of Bashan, and it says in this verse, for only Og the king of Bashan was left of the remnant of the Rephaim. So he was the last of the Rephaim. And behold, his bed was a bed of iron. Now we do find, I think in the time of David, so after this, after Israel has moved into the land that God gave them, David became king of Israel, and during his time we hear about other giants, descendants of Anak. So there's still Nephilim, possibly Rephaim, since the Anakites were descendants of the Rephaim in David's time, but Bashan, Og the king of Bashan, was apparently one of the last existing examples of the Rephaim during the time of Moses. It says, behold, his bed was a bed of iron. So this is a bed that's designed to carry great weight. Is it not in Rabbah of the Ammonites? 9 cubits was its length, and 4 cubits its breadth, according to a common cubit. So as I understand it, a cubit is like the length of, I'm trying to get my whole arm into the shot here, from the fingertips all the way to the elbow. So that's about 18 inches. It's understood to be about 18 inches. So that's like a foot is 12 inches, and then the remainder is 6 inches. So a foot and a half. So when we see something like 9 cubits, that's at least 9 feet. We can divide that in half, which would be 4.5 plus 9. So 13.5 feet. This guy was around 13.5 feet tall. Maybe a little less because you don't want to be hanging off the edge of your bed, but pretty tall compared to a normal person. And a lot of the people at this time, they were living hard lives. They were trying to eat the food from the ground. We have things a lot better thanks to technology. So that would have affected the growth pattern of the normal person. So definitely they would have felt like grasshoppers in the face of this 13.5 foot person. 4 cubits its breadth, so that would be 4 plus 2. The bed was 6 feet wide to accommodate this king. Now, he's a king. Maybe he has a more luxurious sized bed than necessary, but definitely a larger guy than usual. let me look at one more thing here. We're going to go a little bit closer to where we are. Like I said, let me... I want to go back to Anak here. I'm going to look up Anak's name because who was the ancestor of Anak? It says Arba was the father of Anak. Why do we care? Because Caleb, that spy who was saying let's go into the land, he actually went to the portion of the land that was the land of Arba, the son of Anak. So Caleb is going to fight the giants in this land. Caleb drove out from there the 3 sons of Anak, Sheshai and Ahiman and Talmai. We saw those names before. And I want to find out a little bit more about, interesting, the city of Arba, Kiryat Arba. Okay, so learning something here. The way that it's written in the Bible is Kirjath Arba, but it means city of Arba. And this is the account of Abraham's wife Sarah. So I mentioned we have the story of Noah, which we're going to be dealing with next week on Friday evening, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern time in the US. So Noah lived, survived the flood. His descendants built the Tower of Babel that is recorded in Genesis chapter 11. In Genesis chapter 12, we start to get into the life of Abraham, and that takes a significant portion of the book of Genesis. We're in Genesis chapter 23, so at least 11 chapters in, we're still talking about Abraham's wife Sarah. It says Sarah died at Kiryat Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. So the person who was writing this book, and we do believe that it was Moses, who may be compiling historical documents, definitely acting under the inspiration of God, was putting this together. To Moses, Kiryat Arba would have been a significant city because that is this city of the giants, of the Anakim, that Israel is going to have to contend with as they get into the land. So Sarah died at the city of Arba. Who would have come after her? Sarah predated Arba, but the author who's putting this together is using that as a reference for where they were. That is Hebron in the land of Canaan. So Abraham lived around this area, near what's called the Oaks of Mamre. Mamre would have been near where Kiryat Arba eventually rose up. Abraham was living around the Rephaim, and there is a... I didn't want to go back a chapter. There is a story. We'll get into the story in more detail in the future. One more, I think. There were some kings living in the land around Abraham. Abraham was not a political figure. He had a lot of flocks. He may have been an economic figure as he was moving into the land that would become Israel, as God was letting him know, this is the land I'm going to give to your descendants. But Abraham was not someone who was on the radar of any of the kings of the area. We have this story of 9 kings who go to battle. One of them is Chedorlaomer or Chedorlaomer. I'm not sure what the proper pronunciation in Hebrew would be for that name. One of those names that you have to stumble over every time. It says this king came and defeated the Rephaim in these cities. So this king defeated the giants around the area that Abraham was living. and then he conquered the city where Abraham's nephew Lot was. And Abraham, according to this passage, took 318 of his men and fought against these kings who had just wiped out cities of giants. With 318 men and some, it looks like some guerrilla warfare, Abraham was able to defeat these kings who had taken his nephew and rescue his nephew. So we see evidence of these giants even around the time of Abraham. So I think that wraps up the rabbit trail. The reason I wanted to spend the time that I did, let's see. The fastest way is just going to be to type it in. The reason I'm spending the time on these giants, I think this is one of the things. I know there was a movie that was put out a while back. I did not see this movie, called Noah. Actor Russell Crowe. From what I understand, the movie Noah is very inaccurate. It does not treat the Bible like a historical document. It treats it like a fantasy. So, on hearsay, since I have not seen the media for this movie, Noah, from what I understand, there were these creatures, these golems, which the idea of a golem, a creature that's made of earth, I don't know how they are depicted in the movie Noah, but that idea of golem actually comes from Jewish lore, I'll say. I don't know the details on how it became a concept in Jewish religion, but whoever was writing the movie Noah was probably inspired by the Jewish legends about golems, and then saw this about the Nephilim living around the time of Noah and decided to combine the two. And so, from what I understand, there are these golems that are in the movie Noah, which the Bible doesn't say there were golems in Noah's time. It says there were these men of renown, and it's actually hard to say from this verse whether the men of renown are the Nephilim, or whether they are the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of man, or if maybe both apply. So, hard to say. But this is one of the things, you read the King James Version and it says there are giants on the land, and I think there are some people who would write off the Bible immediately at that point. We've already passed the section with the talking snake, and now we're talking about giants. This is nothing but a book of fairy tales. And yet we have evidence of real giants. So I've got a tab here. Got some photos for you. People with a condition called giantism. I think that's one of these conditions. So these people are standing next to full-grown adults, clearly standing maybe over 2 times that fellow's size. Obviously, this guy's towards the back of the room, so it's hard to tell what size he would be up with this man. Got a lady who's a little bit closer. This one right next to a full-grown lady next to someone with giantism. Acromegaly is another, I don't know if it's the same condition or a different one, but causes exceptionally tall human beings. This is a full-grown man. So we've got examples of what we would call giants in the current day. And I'll go back to the Bible reference here. I think when you have the conditions with giantism and acromegaly, what often happens is these people are weaker than they normally would be, because the body is being mutated and distorted and deformed in a way it was not made to carry the extra weight of the muscle and bone necessary to be part of this human being. Necessary in order to make a human being of that size. And I think that's why there's an understanding that as you're creating creatures that get bigger and bigger, it's not the same as just taking that creature and sizing it up. You have to have certain biological organ structures and things that are going to be able to sustain that creature with enough energy in order to sustain the extra mass that creature is going to move around. And a lot of the times larger creatures are going to be slower than smaller creatures related to that idea. So we have people today with conditions like giantism and acromegaly, which winds up in weaker humans. Throughout the Bible, it talks about giants, and these people are warriors, which is not what you would expect for someone who's got mutations that are weakening them. You would expect that to be a handicap. You would not expect a taller person to be going out to battle. You might have they could deal with muscle tears and things because their muscles are stretched over bones that are too long, that kind of issue. So it seems like the giants in the Bible are a different kind of people than those that have giantism and acromegaly today. I do recall in the Princess Bride movie, there is, I think the character's name is Fezzik. I think the actual person was known to be a wrestler named Andre the Giant was his wrestling name, if I'm not mistaken. Haven't done a lot of study or follow through on him, though I could get details wrong. I believe I'm right. But that's a case of someone who is definitely larger than the average human and apparently has the strength to do wrestling. So that's a unique individual. In that case, it would be interesting to see, to know more about why he's a giant and how he developed the strength to go into athletic endeavors like wrestling. But apparently these giants in the Bible are more along those lines, where they have the confidence based on their size to go out and wield massive weapons and go to battle, and are frightening to normal warriors. Even people who are trained for battle are shaking in their boots because of these giants walking around. The story of Goliath is a famous story where you have this boy David who is going to battle against a giant, and thankfully God allowed for that to be a ranged battle. It might have been a little bit different if things had gotten hand to hand. So that is all I'm going to talk about today. Well, now that I've gotten through this section on the Nephilim, that covers a kind of a twisty subject there, and maybe next week I'll be able to get through the story of Noah. We'll cover about 4 chapters if I'm going to get to the end of that all in one week. I'll do that on Friday evening starting at 8 Eastern Time US. So now I'm going to fire up Subnautica and play that for a bit. I was talking about this a little bit during, let me go ahead and go full screen here while I adjust the music. I was talking about this a little bit in my last stream. I used to just talk over the gameplay. And let's see, I can put the browser away. I found that the game would get very distracting. There we go. There's our game music. I'll get the game started and then I'll show you on the screen how it looks. Used to just talk over the gameplay about what I cared about, and it was a little bit less of a guided process, and I would lose my train of thought all the time. We're on the loading screen now. So I'm experimenting with having the more serious discussion being ahead of the gameplay, and then I spend some time in the game, and hopefully this allows you an opportunity to both comment on the more serious things, the more philosophical things, but also gives us some time if you want to comment on more chill chat type subjects, less serious subjects, because it would be great to get to know you not just from a philosophical perspective, but to get to know you as people on a personal level, and to have that kind of relationship with my audience also. So we have let's see. It says 40%, 90%. There we go. And we have the timer up in the corner. Okay. I'm in the game now. Timer says we've got 38 minutes. We've got to meet the Sunbeam. Meet the Sunbeam where? Do I have any data on where to find the Sunbeam? We sent you the coordinates. Okay. So let's check our coordinates. I don't see those. I was expecting to see a beacon there. So, let's see. I'll get out of there. I just want to make sure, I'll check my inventory, make sure that I have everything I need for this trip. Let's cook up these peepers. Okay. I've been playing some other survival games in my off time, and I always find that I keep hitting the wrong buttons to pull up the inventory when I've been messing around with other survival games. I'm already hungry, so I'm going to go ahead and have some of that. That's an old one, so let's get that out of the system. Got some water, got some bleach. I can make more water. Okay. And I know I'm going to be needing my Sea Glide, so let me make sure that the Sea Glide is properly powered. Got 83%. I have any backup batteries, because I think this uses a battery. R button. That uses a normal battery. I don't think I've got a power cell. I don't have a normal battery. I don't have any copper. Turn that light off. Maybe that would save me some electricity. I do have a battery at 30%. I'll take it in case I need a backup. And may as well take my nutrition too. Hopefully I don't die because I've got a lot of important stuff. I'll put my uncooked fish here. And I'll put my coral and salt here, because I'm not going to need those unless I'm near a fabricator. In fact, I can probably put a lot of the stuff that I would combine. I'm not going to need that power cell. Okay, I think that should do it. So, nighttime. What? Sunbeam landing site. Kilometer away. So I want to see what kind of biomes I'm going to be crossing in order to get there. Flashlight so you guys can see. Anything in this box? Nope. I'd be going through the kelp forest, it looks like. Don't want to get too close. There could be stalkers. They are nocturnal. They're still dangerous during the day, but they're definitely hunters at night, and they like shiny metal things. So. How long? Oh, it's already daylight. I may be able to make some progress. Put my flashlight away then. Get a breath. Kind of. I have a high capacity oxygen tank, so that gives me 90 seconds of oxygen, so that's a minute and a half. But I have it stacked on... Do I have it stacked? I don't know. Guess I've got 135 seconds actually, so that's great. There's that old ruin that we found before. Stalkers near that ruin. Saw something orange glowing here. I think it's probably creepvine seeds, but I'm gonna be careful of anything new. There's a stalker. Has it seen me? I think their roars are more prominent when they've seen you. I think they're just being... They're just chilling. Hard to see the difference between the stalkers and all of these flowing kelp. That's one thing the game gets really good is they have a lot of analogous shapes. You can't tell the shapes of your predators versus the shapes of the environment. And a lot of analogous colors, especially things in the distance, lights in the distance tend to glow green. So a peeper's eye is going to be yellow. Gasopods tend to have more greenish colors, but you can't tell the difference between them in the distance. I'm swimming pretty high. This tends to keep me safe. There's a box down there. I ought to check out what's in that box. I think I've been around these caves before. There's another ruin. We've been by that ruin before.
100 meters. Oxygen efficiency decreased.
Mobile bay fragment. Have I gotten that before? Yeah, that's titanium now. So at least it's not entirely useless. This takes up inventory space when you get that wrong. Got some interesting caves here. But we want to meet a landing ship. So we've got... Maybe I should have brought some titanium because I might need to make a base. Look at that. What's that? We're here kind of early. I'm thirsty. That's weird. I know what that is because I played the game before, and it's not something I want to get close to. But that landing site is past it. Ah. Getting nervous, so it's just nice to take a breath when you're nervous. This must be the island that the Sunbeam wants to land on. It's only 300 meters away, 400 meters away. Not get close to that board. There's a shape down. Hear that roaring? Not the kind of thing I want to mess with. Nervous now that I'm getting into a new biome. Oh. What? There's a radio met call. I guess they didn't expect me to be out here this far yet. So let me pick up on that radio call. Because certainly I'll be able to get out this far if they intended me to be at home to get the radio call. And I can also use the Sea Glide to get out here this fast if necessary. Just make sure that I've gotten stocked up. Maybe get some titanium in case I need to bide my time. They've got this little hologram display on the Sea Glide so you can kind of tell what the area around you looks like. What the topology is. I'm guessing that dot above the map is me, so... But I'm pretty close to that ledge that I just passed over. Okay, so I can stop using the power on that. What's the message?
Playing partially translated broadcast.
9 new biological subjects designated. Mode. Hunting. Analyzing. Sharing subject locations with other agents.
I think I was seen. They definitely use a creepy voice model for that message. There is no doubt this is not your friend. I got plenty of food. I think I might need quartz for some projects in if I'm going to build a base too. So I'll take that quartz. Maybe I'll think about getting some quartz on my way back. Okay. And then I wanted more titanium. There we go. And then I don't know if you can transition a titanium ingot back into titanium or not. I'll keep that there because it only takes one space of my inventory. And then maybe I'll look for rock outcroppings too that might have copper in case I need to make another battery. Checking on my dog. I'll grab a couple of, tell you what, what's my blueprint situation like? Because I might be able to make a fabricator once I get there. Did I pass it? Fabricator. Need gold and a table coral sample. I think I've got gold. So if I at least bring gold and a table coral sample, I should be able to get pretty well set up, maybe. At the if I need to make a new location. New base. Because I do have, just double checking, yeah, I do have my habitat builder. And table coral, where do I find that? There we are. Got it. I don't know that I need that much. I can dump it if I don't need it. And I've got, I don't have coral and I didn't bring salt. I'll just grab some on the way. I will need to get the coral from here. I can scan this? Great. Don't want to be too low, but the salt grows on the floor. Often in these red zones, which is also where we find quartz. So I'll grab another quartz. And salt. And then I'll consider myself content. He's gonna start telling me I need oxygen.
30 seconds.
Called it! We're at 25 minutes. So I am at least on the air for another 25 minutes. Curious what's in here. These dangly things are definitely no touchy. Oh. Wasn't as content as I thought. I needed that copper. Oh. Okay. He's between me and my goal, but I don't think he noticed me. So in that radio message, that mode hunting analyzing, is that the mode of the voice and the agents, or is that the mode they think I'm in? Island. And I am away from all the kelp. Probably want to get closer to the see so I can see what's going on. But that's where the vortex. Where is that guy? Not seeing. I think that's it. Stay away from. Yep, that's it. Stay away from him. Wherever he went. That roaring again. You can't hear the stalkers from here. I don't see any other enemies. We're here already. Can't get up on this side. Oh, I saw something that looked dangerous. And I hear something. This is not where I want to be. But there was some. Yeah, that guy.
Detecting massive energy signature in the region. Cannot identify.
Okay. Need to move fast. I could get out my sea glide. Looks like the land rises up over there. On the other side of that rise. Apparently our destination. But if there's... Okay, that is... See something wiggling back there and it looks sick. Got all those green spots on it. I can't tell if one of those spinny guys was over here or if I saw a swirl of the fish. Probably need a breath. Not this soon, but that guy is getting too close. So if there's nothing dangerous in front of me, this wall will make sure nothing comes beside me. I was just about to say at least the roaring stopped. Sounds louder. The music has gotten a little bit more hectic. I don't know how well you can hear it. Not loud, but it's frenetic. We've got biters too. Can't just leave me alone. And then there were those strange crabs that came like that one. Let's be proactive. Okay. And I'm hungry and thirsty. Maybe time for a meal. Oh, inventory full. That's great. I've got more spaces. I guess it's a big section of... This one takes like 4 spaces. And it's nighttime. And there's crabs. I wasn't aiming to be here in the evening. We're 20 minutes ahead of schedule. Maybe I can set up camp or something. Hard to make that out in the evening. I've got a flashlight. Won't shine all the way over there, but will at least help y'all see the environment. Can't fight crabs while I'm holding the flashlight, though. Okay, that's a biter over by the seashore. I was wondering if that was something significant. Nope, just a water glitch. So... Should I be expecting any friends? Because that does not look like a fish belted. This is where the ship wanted to land? Broken. I don't think I can scan. Oh, I can scan it. I don't think I can pick it up. I'm guessing that's closed. Oh. Insert tablet. What? I don't have a tablet. What did I just scan? Probably be in the data bank. Oh, there was a time capsule from the last time that I didn't look at. A depth module. I'll have to look into that more later. Okay, it's about my database was corrupted apparently. Geologic data downloads, was that alien data? That's what I scanned. Purple tablet. This carbon-based device is lighter than it looks and features a symbol which resembles a U, lit up in purple. Despite the onboard power still functioning, algae growth on the exterior indicates it was abandoned hundreds, perhaps thousands of years ago. Hopefully that means this building was abandoned hundreds or thousands of years ago. While the technology is far beyond the Federation levels, and there is no obvious way to interface with it, it should nonetheless be possible to fabricate a precise physical copy of the device if necessary. So that's good to know. I don't have a tablet for this device, which apparently knows I'm here. There are sentients around because something saw me. This has a light, so I'm gonna save the flashlight then. Oh, they know I'm here too. And this one looks like it's intact. So I can get into the building. More lights over here. I think I'll check out what this looks like. Not much room. Nope, there's still a path. This is definitely a path. This. Can I scan it? Not showing me that it can be scanned. Probably just terrain geography. Enough to make it look interesting around here. No door back here. Sun's coming on. Maybe I had a meal. Okay, so I still have space is taken up, especially since I... Oh, there's more path here. Especially since I put away that tablet. Vault here. Vault above the water level? And what's that? Ah! Leave me alone. If I were the crab, I'd be saying, you leave me alone. Okay, now it's dead. Cave? I will say I have been in the building before, but I have not been in this cave before. See if those crabs come for me. They're not acting aggressive. Yeah? Apparently they are. I bite faster than they do, though. Hearing something off on this side, but I'm not seeing those blue eyes. Now, this bird is harmless, but anything moving gets knifed, as far as I'm concerned. That. Fail. Yeah, this guy's attacking. Gotcha. Got him. These are not too hard to fight off. This leads out towards that building again. Gonna scan this shale. I'm not gonna bother breaking it because my inventory is at a premium right now. For lights. But plenty of geological... Oh. I can pick that up? That. I'll go actually look at that. Flora pink cap. Land-based fungus species with harvestable spores inedible. Good to know. And this is lithium. Can't scan it, can grab it. Not gonna. More path over here. Hungry and thirsty again, but I think that will use up my water resources. This whole mountain is basically hollow, isn't it? Don't see any lights here. I'm going to stick to the path that I don't have to use that flashlight battery power on. What is this? That is bad news. Okay. Can scan something? Alien arch. I can scan the whole thing. This structure's intended purpose is unclear. Didn't need you to tell me that. Theories on function. Ceremonial religious role, industrial applications, advanced transportation network, assessment, future research required. Can't scan that. Ion cube. What is an ion cube? $10. Deep drop. Got some more of those pink caps. Oh. Speckled rattler. What is this? A bristle land plant containing large spores which generate a characteristic rattle when the plant is shaken. This may ward off predators or even encourage predation as a means of spreading the force. So, empty inventory spaces are more valuable at this point, but that may become... Oh, I can scan this guy? All I need to know is they're bitey. Necessary waste recycler, avoid or incapacitate. Yes. Okay, now I'll search down this tunnel. A good way to get lost. I figure when the timer hits 5 minutes, I'll probably do my best to reach the surface. got more crap. Or wait, what's the official name for
Seek
those?
fluid
Cave
intake.
crawlers. Yes, ma'am. As long as nobody's gonna jump me while I'm doing that.
Vital signs stabilizing.
I'm so thirsty. I need to at least make myself a rudimentary base, I guess. I should be using my flashlight. So, back to the surface, if I did not already lose my way there. I'm gonna get bit. Okay, no. This does not look like the way to the surface. How much inventory space do I have? 3. If I eat something else, I might be able to carve up one of those trees. Bulbo trees. I'm not going to bother him if he won't bother me. I don't think I need the flashlight. What's it? Have I been here? Yes. So I'm back on the surface. That's where the ship is going to land. Vault up here. So what does it take to make a base around? Come on. I want to put my habitat builder in my inventory. How do I do that? Click. What happens if I just try to place treatment? Enough of a foundation out here for that.
Seek fluid intake.
I'll do my best. Make a hatch.
Warning, emergency power only. Oxygen production offline.
I've got oxygen. And then... oh, bioreactor. Interesting. I can make my fabricator. The question is, will it have the power to work? Doesn't seem functional. Can I make power source? Need more quartz. Where do I find that? And I built this so high up. I have plenty of space in my inventory, though. I can pop a tree. If I can find one. I go back in the mountain. I'm out of the mountain. A tablet? Have not been here? Not gonna stay here. I need to find a tree. Four minutes and I'm gone. Up. Put down. I think that's, yeah, that's back where the base is. Going in circles. That's where the arch is. This looks like down. I definitely need to be outside in 3.5 minutes. you doing here? Does it mean I did not explore this area? I don't care. I want out. I am berserk. I'm berserk and thirsty. That's a drop.
Seek fluid intake immediately.
There's no way I could extract fluid from those cave crawlers, huh? Up. Great idea, getting lost in a cave right when I need to make my rendezvous. At least that's the outside. That's the landing site. And there's trees. Way down there. Is that a tree over there? Is that a tree in here?
Calorie intake recommended.
I can fix that, but I think that'll make me thirstier. Yes! Okay. That gives me...
Vital signs stabilizing.
Thank you.
Vital signs stabilizing.
I think I can eat some of my drier stuff now. Good. I'm gonna take some more of that tree just in case. "48 seconds. Here's the Sunbeam. This looks like a... Whoop. Hearing something. Ah. Past this wall. Am I hearing it from over here? It's moving.
Survivor, we see you. Man, I don't know how you held out down there. We broke an atmosphere, and we're descending towards the landing site.
Great.
Is that a building down there? What do you mean you can't identify it?
Is that the ship?
Hold on. No turning back now. Positions, everyone. Touching down in 10, 9, 8. It's coming from the building? Change course. Set thrusters to full.
Don't hear him anymore. It was kinda... It would kinda be nice if anyone survived, but I don't think so. And I'm not going into the water to find out. Because unfortunately, I am not as brave as my would-be rescuer. But I need to find
Seek fluid intake.
Yeah.
Vital signs
More
stabilizing.
noise. It's moving. Okay, I guess as long as it's not pointing at me. No. Am I hearing sirens? I guess not. Well, in order to make use of my fabricator, I would need quartz. To get quartz, I think I need to get back into the water. Okay, and my D key on my keyboard did break, so trying to figure out what to do with that as I am maneuvering. I think what I probably want to do, since I'm dealing with a dysfunctional keyboard now, is end it here. I think this is probably a good note to end on. I've got some water around in case I need hydration before I get back home. So I'll start from this point next Friday at 8 p.m. So a different schedule than today. Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And God bless you and play kind.